Now, we spent 2 months in South Korea last summer, and it was one of our most favorite countries that we visited last year. And that's because the country is just so beautiful. They've designed everything to be aesthetically pleasing to the eye. The country is sparkling clean. There's like hardly any trash anywhere. And it was just so unique. It was one of the most unique places we've ever visited. But there are definitely some things you need to know before you go to South Korea, because you can't navigate South Korea like you would do any other country in the world. So in this video, we're going to cover things like a good itinerary for South Korea, how to get around the country, what to avoid, food to try, how safe is the country, and all the other little things you need to know before you go. Well, hey world travelers, I'm Kendra Lucas.
And I'm David Lucas of Lucas World Travel. Now we're on a journey to visit 100 countries and then hopefully relocate to one of our favorites in the world. We spent 2 months in South Korea to see if we would like it there. But whether you're on a short trip or a long trip, these are the things you need to know before you go. Now the first thing you need to know is that Google Maps does not work for navigation in South Korea.
Yes, for whatever reason, Google Maps doesn't navigate at all. To navigate South Korea, you're going to need to download Naver Maps, which is going to help you navigate the bus system, the metro trains, and just in general walking directions on how to get from place to place. Now, Naver is a bit hard to set up because it's all in Korean, but you can change it to English. However, in order to do that, you're going to have to take screenshots of the app, then translate each page into Google Translate. So it does take some time to get it all switched over into English, but once you do, then you'll be able to navigate easily in South Korea. Now, although Google Maps will not navigate you anywhere in South Korea, I did use it quite a bit in order to read reviews of restaurants and to find restaurants I wanted to try. Because while Naver Maps does have reviews of things, they only have those reviews in Korean and they're not translatable into English. So it was just easier to read reviews in Google Maps in English and then use Naver Maps to navigate to the restaurant I wanted to go to.
For data, we use Airlo eSIM, and it worked really well. And you'll need data in order to use Naver to get around.
Yes, the Airlo eSIM worked perfectly as expected. However, in this case, I really do wish we did get a local SIM so we could have a local South Korean phone number, because there's functions in Naver Maps that I wasn't able to access because I didn't have a local phone number. So if we ever go back to South Korea, I probably would get a local SIM card so that I could access all the features of Naver Maps, which I found was the most useful way to navigate South Korea.
Next, you'll also want to get a T-Money card for tapping in and tapping out. And what that means is when you're using local transportation, you'll use that card to enter any type of local transportation that you're using. Now you can get that at the airport when you first arrive.
So when you arrive, you want to go to the 7-Eleven in order to get one of these T-Money cards.
Now public transportation is very good, easy, and reliable, but the cutoff is 12 o'clock midnight. So if you're going to be having a late night of dancing and partying and going out, then you're going to have to take a taxi or Uber after that.
Now, a good itinerary for South Korea is naturally to head up two of the biggest cities, Seoul, the capital, and Busan in the south, so you can get some beach time as well. And these are two gorgeous cities to visit. And if you have extra time in Busan, you can take a day trip up to Gwangju, which is like the historical capital of South Korea. If you have even more time after Seoul and Busan, though, you can fly to Jeju Island in order to take in all the lovely scenery there, hiking, and beaches. Now, another thing that you need to know before you go to South Korea is that although Google says that the water is 100% safe to drink in South Korea, we didn't have that experience there. So we started off drinking the water, but it did cause us some mild, very mild stomach upset. And we asked our host about it, our Airbnb host. And he's like, I don't drink the water. I don't care what anybody says. He's like, and I don't recommend you drink the water either. So we stopped drinking the water after that and had a much better time. So it's not like it ruined our day. It's just that when we were out, we're like, my stomach's kind of hurting. So yeah, even though Google says it's okay, I don't recommend it. But you can take your chances with how you feel about it. I just think it's easier to get bottled water. Now, the next thing you should know is about the food in South Korea because they have so many different unique foods there to try. So naturally, our favorite was the bulgogi. I think most foreigners, they know bulgogi already and love it already. So you have to try that when you're in the country. I think our favorite thing that we tried was the Korean barbecue. We went out for barbecue beef. Oh my goodness. It was like the best beef I ever had. It was so, so delicious. I think that was our favorite meal in South Korea. Yeah. So definitely try the Korean barbecue. Naturally, that was also our most expensive meal, but it was worth it. It was so delicious. And in general, they have a lot of delicious stews there. You have your kimchi stew. I had a pork and zucchini stew that was just so fantastic. I also really liked the kimbap, which is like a seaweed wrap roll. It looks like sushi, but it's not because they have like cooked beef inside or ham or egg. So there isn't like seafood at all, like Japan would have it. Theirs is like cooked meats and different vegetables and things, and it's so delicious. You also have the bibimbap, which is good, but it's like the flavors really aren't that intense. It's like the red chili paste is what makes that one flavorful. So that one's just okay on my list. Other things we really like the seaweed soup. If you see seaweed soup on the menu, we went to a specialty restaurant for that. That was absolutely delicious. Love that one. And naturally the soju, the alcohol, so fantastic. But one thing we tried that we weren't really sure about that was a cool experience was trying the cold noodles. Like they tasted good, but it's just weird to have cold noodles. It tasted like noodle salad in a way. So that was really interesting. That was like a traditional North Korean dish that we had. It's worth trying. Wasn't necessarily my favorite, but it was interesting. It's worth trying. We also tried the tteokbokki at one of the local markets. And, you know, I see this one on Korean dramas all the time. So I was super excited to try it. And I was like, this is kind of, that one wasn't my favorite either. So I recommend it because it's interesting. It's different, but what's my favorite flavor? Overall, though, mostly with the stews and the bulgogi, man, you're going to enjoy the food in South Korea. So it's not like every national dish is something that a tourist is going to enjoy, but they have a lot of great options for you to explore there. Very unique flavors, too.
Now, another thing you should know is that South Korea doesn't have a lot of public trash cans or trash bins out, much like it is in Japan. So you'll have to carry your trash with you. In other words, if you eat snacks or something like that along the way, you'll take those things, put them in your bag, and when you go back to your residence or to your accommodation, then you'll throw your trash out there. You won't do that much publicly. And that's probably why South Korea is super clean, much like Japan. It's very, very clean. So you're going to enjoy being out. It's very scenic, and it doesn't take away from everything that's going on around you.
And speaking of trash, if you're staying in an Airbnb like we were, you're going to have to separate your trash. And it is quite involved in South Korea. I'm not sure what they do for hotels. You probably don't have to worry about this if you're in a hotel. But in our Airbnb, we had, you know, these special bags for landfill waste. And then if you get any takeout, you actually have to wash your takeout containers and recycle that plastic. And you separate your food waste. So your food waste goes in a different container than your landfill trash. And so when you go down, there's like all these different bins where you put your cans and your plastic and your paper and your cardboard and your clothing and then your food and then your landfill waste. And oh my goodness, it took a minute to get used to. But I think this is part of the reason why South Korea is so clean, because they've organized their trash so well and they take it very seriously there. So it was very interesting to be part of the super sorter trash people while we were in South Korea. It just showed me that was the most involved trash sorting I've ever participated in. And it was so unique and interesting to see.
Now, South Korea is one of those countries to where you're going to need your passport for many places and sites that you're going to go to. You'll need it when you go to the DMZ if you're heading to the border where South Korea borders with North Korea. You'll need it for that experience. You'll also need it when you go out shopping and you want to get discounts at the tax-free shopping type centers. And there are many all over the place. So you'll need your passport for that. And you'll also need it when you go to visit the Blue House. Now, the Blue House is no longer the main president's house that it used to be, but it's still wonderful to see. You're going to want to go in there. You're going to want to look around, and it's really pretty cool. So definitely take your passport around with you because you're going to need it for these events.
Another thing that really threw us for a loop in South Korea is just the difference in how friendly people are there. So as Americans, we're used to people being friendly in a way, such as smiling, telling a joke, talking, all this other things, you know. But in South Korea, I found none of that. Like, their faces are just completely blank and expressionless. And it's like a little off-putting at first, if I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. So I was like, ugh. But give it a minute. Like, they are so kind. I dare say they are the kindest people in the world. And they show their friendliness through acts of service instead of through smiles or with words or anything like that. So for an example of this, we were having ramen in a ramen shop. And I was like, oh, I wonder what this song is. So I'm getting my phone out to Shazam the song, and it's not Shazamming. This little guy comes out of nowhere from the kitchen, and he gives me the name of the song written down. And it's just like, how did you even know? Like, they're very observant people. So they're like, oh, she wants to know this song. I can give that to her. And he like goes out of his way to write down the name of the song and give it to me and expect nothing in return. And it's like, because like I wasn't thinking about him. I got my food. I wasn't thinking about the staff anymore. And he just pops out of nowhere. Here's the name of the song. And he like disappears. And they don't want any thanks. They don't want any recognition. They like are in and out so quickly. And it's so kind. And then in another situation, we were at this very local restaurant. We had no business being in there, really. It was super local, y'all. We didn't know what we were doing. They only had 2 dishes, bulgogi and squid. And we got 2 bulgogis, not knowing. You're supposed to get the bulgogi and the squid and mix them together. That's how it's supposed to be done. So the people sitting next to us got us a squid and told us to mix it in there. So they gave us a whole plate of food. It was like an $8 plate of food. And they didn't want any thanks. They didn't want any recognition. They just translated it on their phone what they were trying to say. And it's like, I've never had anybody give me a whole plate of food anywhere. They like just thought I wasn't eating the food right. And they like bought me food and made me eat it right. And there were no smiles anywhere. Like, if you just looked at the guys, you would have thought they were mad at us, like the way they were expressionless. Kind of like, you know, how ladies talk about their resting bitchy face. I kind of feel like that's what South Korea has going on. But they were so kind. How kind is that? That somebody sees you're eating their food wrong. So they buy you the correct thing and mix it up for you. Well, they didn't mix it up for us. We mixed it up ourselves. But they told us how to eat it so we can enjoy it. And the food was banging after that. You know what I mean? So like we were just smiling and like, thank you, thank you, thank you. And they never smiled back. They're like, maybe one nod of the head. It was like, I never experienced anything like this before. And in general, that's just how I feel like the people are. So I feel like that's very important to realize. Don't expect smiles. Don't expect, you know, the usual jovial friendliness that we're used to. They don't do that there. But it's so refreshing to see just their kindness come through in different ways. So hope you get to experience that as well when you're there.
So another thing you want to be aware of is the air quality, especially in the spring. In the spring, there's a lot of dust that's actually flowing into the country from Mongolia, believe it or not. And then also they get some poor air quality that's coming in from China that kind of settles in there and sits there for a little bit. And so during those times, you might want to wear a mask if you're there, just to make sure that, you know, this type of pollution isn't getting inside of your body and whatever. But Also, you'll notice them if you're there in the spring. A lot of them will probably be wearing masks. A lot of times we got accustomed to masks during COVID and things like this. And you wonder why certain countries, you always see them wearing masks and different things. And sometimes it's just because of things like this. It might be a seasonal thing. It might be allergies as well. So just be aware of that, that it could get to a point where it could bother you.
Yes, our friend who went to South Korea in the spring had terrible air quality levels while she was there. I want to say they were in the 150s to 200s. So she had to wear a mask and she had some breathing problems while she was there due to the poor air quality. Well, we were there in the summer. No problems whatsoever, no mask needed. It was beautiful, like blue skies, gorgeous. So it really is a seasonal thing. So you want to like check the air quality reports online to make sure if you're going in the spring that you're going to bring a mask so that you're protecting your lungs, and just make sure in the summer that the air is good quality to breathe. Now, speaking of the air quality, let's talk about the best times to visit South Korea. Now, South Korea does have extreme weather, so super cold winters and super hot summers. So you do want to try to go in the in-between times, like late spring and late summer. If you want beach time in Busan, the best time for that is like May, June. But also like the most favorable weather times is like April, May, and then September, October-ish. So those are going to be the best times temperature-wise for those cooler temperatures, so you're not either too cold or too hot. We were there August and September, and it was indeed quite toasty. But we were still able to see everything just fine. I dare say Japan was a lot hotter during the same time. So it's still manageable even in the heat of summer, I would say, if you want to go summertime.
So for those of you who are familiar with traveling, you know how much we use Google Translate. But Google Translate is really, really a great option to be able to translate signs and menus and different things like this. And even if you're going to a local convenience store and you want to look at things, that's another good way to translate items from Korean to English. Also, Google Translate, a lot of people aren't familiar about this, but it has a camera option. So you could take photos of things and translate it that way as well. So it's not just a language app that translates by vocal hearing and seeing or writing things in. You can actually take a picture of it and translate it that way. So all those functions actually do help. They help when you're going to a country, especially when there's limited number of people that actually speak English as much as we do. And we depend on Google Translate for that.
Yeah, our experience was like, especially in restaurants and things like that, really not that many people spoke English. So you are going to have to use Google Translate quite a bit to communicate, learn a few words in Korean if possible, in order to help yourself get around. Everything is so obvious. You can do everything by pointing. Like, there's really not that many words you need to say in South Korea. Everything is just very organized. So you really don't have to worry about the language barrier. You don't have to use that many words in South Korea, if I'm perfectly honest. Now, the currency in South Korea is the won. And currently, exchange rates are about like where 1,000 won is about, let's see, 74 cents US. 10,000 won is about 735 US, and 50,000 won, that's about $36 US. But naturally, these prices fluctuate quite a bit. So you want to use a currency conversion app in order to know how much things are costing. Now, we got all our money out of an ATM, and I found the ATMs that worked the best were the ones out of the convenience stores, like 7-Eleven, and there's a few other convenience stores that are major in South Korea. And also the ATMs in the Lotte shopping centers worked for me as well. But South Korea also had a lot of ATMs that didn't work for me. A lot of the local banks' ATMs wouldn't work for me. There is a chance you're going to have to try several different ATMs in order to find one that's going to work for you in South Korea. But I always did eventually find one. So I would say look for those convenience stores and look for a Lotte, because those are your best choices, best chances that a foreign card is going to work. Also, when the screen comes up, they're going to give you a lot of different options, like 8 different options. You want to look on the ATM for the option for foreign cards, because I think like there's an option for Visa, MasterCard, and then all the way in the corner it says foreign cards. Don't get caught up in picking the visa option, because that's how you're going to get your transaction declined. Don't just choose Visa if you see that first. Check and see if you see an option for foreign cards. You want to always go with the foreign card option in order to get cash out of the ATM there.
So another great thing here is that in Korea, there's no tipping. So that's a way that you're actually going to save some money on your trip, which is great, okay? But the way that you pay there, you're going to order your food and then you'll pay at the counter at the end. Unless you're at a fast food place, then you'll pay at the kiosk.
Yes, typically in South Korea, you're never going to pay at the table. You're always going to pay at the counter or at the kiosk.
So another thing worth noting is that the outlets are European style, okay? So it's the two-prong one that most of you are familiar with. If you're coming from America, you will need an adapter for that.
And naturally, the language in Korea is Korean. And even though not that many people spoke English, I really didn't have any problems communicating with everyone, because for everything we needed to do, it was obvious what we needed to do. So it was mostly just, 2.1 point. So it was very easy to communicate with pantomime with everyone. So I didn't really have any language trouble. And while learning Korean is a bit challenging, learning Hangul, the alphabet in Korea, not too bad. You could learn the alphabet in a day, and then you can start reading in Korean. So I do recommend trying to learn the alphabet, try to learn to read in Korean. I'd say I was still at toddler level of reading comprehension, so not very functional. I couldn't really read the whole menu in Korean. But it's a good thing to start to get used to, so you can start reading the signs and start feeling more comfortable with what you're seeing around you when you're in South Korea.
How safe is it to go to South Korea? Well, right now on the Global Peace Index, it's number 46. Just in comparison, you can see that the US is 132. So that gives you an idea, but it's very, very safe to go. In fact, I remember seeing quite a few women that seemed like they were traveling alone there. So it's very, very safe for people who are just interested in that country, interested in their culture, and want to check it out for themselves. It's very, very safe to walk at night and go places alone and all of those things.
Yes, South Korea has a very low violent crime rate, so we felt perfectly safe there. We didn't even worry about our belongings or anything getting stolen, so we were really able to relax completely there. So we really did have a very relaxing, very beautiful 2 months in the country. And coming up next, we're going to be showing you all the things we did in Seoul and Busan and give you all of our trips for each of these beautiful cities. So be sure to like and subscribe for more from South Korea and for more tips from all around the world. We're going to take you with us and show you what it's like living in the places you travel. Until next time, you can check out our full Asian playlist on the right there. All right, world travelers, well, thank you so much for watching. Thanks for sharing with all your fellow travel pals who are going to South Korea with you. And happy travel planning until next time. Bye.